Last season it was TCU. The year before it was Michigan. Who could be that team to make their college football playoff debut this season? I think there are several candidates. I think that there are several teams that can legitimately get to the playoff for the first time. Now, if you watch my playoff prediction video, you know I don't have any newcomers in there, but I do think that there is a real shot that we could see a team make their debut. And of course, next year, 12-team playoff, we're going to see a bunch of teams start making debuts into the college football playoff. But one last year of the 14 playoff, and these are the teams that I think could potentially make their playoff debut. So we'll start at number 10. All right, this is going to surprise some people. Kentucky. The Kentucky Wildcats are not even in my preseason top 25. So how in the world could this team make it into the college football playoff? Well, I just think there's potential there. And again, these are all teams with potential to maybe go on a big run. You look at their schedule, and it's going to be really tough with Georgia and Alabama. But they get Alabama at home, and if they could pull off a shocking upset, they don't have to beat Georgia. They could maybe get to 11-1 and possibly sneak into the college football playoff. They have a lot of their big games at home this year, and I just look at Liam Cohen coming back, and you look at the offense when he was there. Devin Leary, maybe a step up at quarterback potentially. They've got Ray Davis at running back. They've got really good wide receivers, a strong offensive line, a good defense. If this team can be explosive on offense and just play the way they have always played with good defense and their ability to run the football, Kentucky could actually be a top 25 team this year. And if things go just right for them, I think they could maybe sneak into the college football playoff. Now, they're at number 10. I don't really think they're going to make it in. But it's just a team that intrigues me, and I think they could surprise. They were one of my sleeper teams if you watch that video. All right, number 9, Wisconsin. Wisconsin is another team that could possibly sneak into the college football playoff. You look at their schedule, it is really, really manageable. They have Ohio State at home. That's going to be their toughest game for sure, but it's at home. And, the Buckeyes, how good are they going to be? We'll have to wait and see. But if Wisconsin is able to somehow win that game, and I think every other game on this schedule is winnable for Wisconsin. If they take a step forward and they're a lot better this year, and I think they have the pieces to potentially do that if everything comes together. If you could somehow beat Ohio State in that game, they could lose to, say, Michigan in the Big Ten Championship and still get into the college football playoff. So I think there's a path there for them. It's going to be very tough. It's very unlikely that Wisconsin is in the playoff, but I think that they could potentially be in that conversation. I think that it's going to take beating Ohio State, though. I mean, if they don't win that game, then you've got to win the Big Ten Championship. And if you can't beat Ohio State at home, you're probably not going to beat Michigan or Ohio State or Penn State in the Big Ten Championship. So that is going to be a huge opportunity for them. We'll see if they can pull it off. I don't think that they will, but again, a team with potential. All right, number 8 is Oregon State. So a lot of people are talking about this team. I have my doubts about Oregon State. I don't think that they're going to be in that top tier like some believe they will be. If DJ Uiagalelei, though, if he is great, if he can live up to that 5-star potential, then there's a chance Oregon State could possibly make a run. I have some question marks about their secondary on defense, but the front 7 should be strong. They have good running backs, pretty good wide receivers. Offensive line should be strong. So I think it really does come down to DJ. If he's a Heisman candidate, if he is really, really good, Oregon State could possibly crash that party. They've got a lot of big games at home, and there is a path for them to potentially get into the college football playoff. All right, number 7, Utah. Utah has been hanging around, winning Pac-12 championships, winning Rose Bowls, staying right there at the top of college football for a while now, but they just can't seem to break through and get to the college football playoff. I think it's going to be tough again this year. Their schedule, it's just going to be tough. But I think there's potential because, again, they have been in that conversation. They have been at the top of college football, near the top, pretty much every year. And if some things can go their way, if they can win some games, if they get a little bit of chaos and perhaps win the Pac-12 championship with 2 losses, that might be enough to get in this year with a little bit of chaos, because the Pac-12 is going to be really respected this year, I believe, by the committee, with Oregon and Oregon State and Washington and USC, UCLA, a lot of good teams in this conference, ironically, in their final season. But Utah, I think there's a path for them. We'll see if they can. Again, just looking at the schedule, I don't see them winning the Pac-12 with just one loss, and kind of the same thing with Oregon State. but a 2-loss Pac-12 champion with a little bit of chaos could be in that conversation. All right, number 6 is Kansas State. Obviously, they have to be on this list. They won the Big 12 championship last year. A lot coming back this year. I think they are right there among the front runners in the Big 12. This conference is going to be tough, and the teams are going to beat up on each other, and that's why I think it's going to be tough really for anyone to make it out of the Big 12. But Kansas State definitely has a shot. I've got them getting upset by Missouri early in the season, but if they can win that game, go on and win the Big 12, maybe with one loss, yeah, Kansas State could be right there in the college football playoff. Number 5, Texas A&M, a team that is loaded with talent, a team that I think has a couple of different paths to get to the college football playoff. Winning the SEC, I think, is going to be really tough. I've got them beating Alabama, but they have to play LSU on the road. They've got to play Tennessee. They've got a pretty tough schedule. And then probably having to beat Georgia in the SEC championship. I find that hard to see Texas A&M pulling that off. But I think there's a path for them to potentially lose maybe one game, lose to LSU, let's say, on the road, and LSU goes undefeated, or they finish with one loss, or maybe they even win the SEC championship. Maybe Texas A&M could sneak their way in there at 11-1. Again, I think it's going to be tough for them to go and win the SEC championship and do that with one loss. But with the SEC, you never know. Maybe they could find themselves in with 2 losses. If, let's say, they lose to Tennessee and LSU, that's going to be tough because I don't think LSU is going to lose 3 games. But I guess you never know. But again, I think that the path for Texas A&M is to go 11-1, lose to LSU, and hope LSU wins the SEC championship. And the talent is there. Texas A&M could have a really good year this year. They were another one of my surprise teams, sleeper teams for this upcoming season. So Tennessee at number 4. It really comes down to, I think, the Alabama game. This is another team that I think it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for them. They do get Georgia at home, so there are a couple of different ways Tennessee could get in. First of all, this team's going to be really good on offense once again. Because of that, they're going to be able to they'll be in every game that they play. I don't see, they can beat, I think, anyone because of that offense. But you look at a couple of different paths. So let's say they lose on the road to Alabama, but they upset Georgia at home. That would be enough to put them in the SEC championship. And if they can win that game, they're going to be in the college football playoff with one loss. But let's say they can't beat Georgia, and Georgia's just too good. If they can go into Tuscaloosa and beat Alabama, which is going to be tough, obviously, but if they can do that, they can get to 11-1, and they could get into the college football playoff without winning the SEC championship. A very similar path as Texas A&M. I don't think they're going to lose another game. I look at the Missouri game on the road. Potentially that one could get them, but I really feel like this team's going to be 10-2 or 11-1. And if they're 11-1 with that loss coming to Georgia, loss coming to Georgia, but beating Alabama, again, I think they're a really good shot that they're in the college football playoff. Remember, 11-1 would have gotten them in last year, but they lost to South Carolina, and we all know how that went. All right, number 3 is Penn State. Penn State, another team that I think is, if we get a 3-way tie in the Big Ten East with Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State, which is very possible, it's going to come down to tiebreakers. It depends. It's really going to depend on their opponents out of the Big Ten West and how good they do. So it's hard to even predict that right now. But a couple of different ways Penn State could get in. And this is a team that's going to be really good on defense. We know about their running backs. I think they're going to be solid on offense as well. Drew Aller, how good will he be? That'll be the key, obviously. But if they can split with Ohio State and Michigan and hope that Ohio State, let's say they lose to Michigan, but they beat Ohio State, and Michigan also beats Ohio State. Michigan goes undefeated. Penn State's sitting there with one loss. They don't have to go to the Big Ten Championship, and they could get in. Or, like I said, they could win a tiebreaker. I do not see this team going 12-0. I think it's 10-2 or 11-1, just like with Tennessee. But a couple different ways they could get in. They could get in like that, or they could win a 3-way tie potentially and win the Big Ten Championship, and I think that's going to get them in. I don't know if anyone's really thought about it, but what happens if there is a 3-way tie, Michigan, Penn State, and Ohio State, and they all have one loss? The champion, whoever goes on to win the Big Ten Championship, is probably going to get in. What if it comes down to those other two teams as far as who gets a playoff spot? I guess it would probably come down to that head-to-head matchup. So really intriguing possibilities in the Big Ten this year. But Penn State definitely has a couple of different ways they can get into the college football playoff for the first time. I think Texas, though, number 2, a team that should win the Big 12. I mean, I know we talk about it all the time. Texas is the most talented team in the Big 12. They should be the best team, and they just haven't really been able to do that. But that gap is getting wider and wider. This team is getting more and more talented. We saw them take a little bit of a step forward last year. We saw their potential against Alabama. They're going to be really good again this year. I think there's a real shot that they could get to the college football playoff. Now, I've got them beating Alabama, and if they do that, you could still afford a loss in the Big 12, but if you don't beat Alabama, you're not going to be able, I think, to lose again in the Big 12 and get in with 2 losses. I just don't know if the Big 12 is going to be strong enough. I don't think they're going to have enough of those teams at the top like the Pac-12 will, even though maybe top to bottom the Big 12 will be a better conference. But yeah, Texas, I think beating Alabama is going to be the key, because I don't know that they're going to run the table in the Big 12. Maybe they can, and if you only lose to Alabama and you go undefeated in the Big 12, win the Big 12 championship, yeah, you're going to be in, but I think that's going to be tough. So I think it comes down to week 2. Can they beat Alabama? If they can, they have a really good shot. But the team with the best chance, I think, to get in for the first time is USC. And I was very close to putting this team in my college football playoff. Really was back and forth between 11-1 and 10-2. I think there's a really good chance that they go 11-1, and it comes down to the Pac-12 championship. Whoever they play, whether it's Oregon, Washington, Utah, Oregon State, whoever they play, if they can win that Pac-12 championship and they're 11-1, they're going to be in the college football playoff. And I think that, again, there's a really, really good chance that happens. It was so hard for me to make my predictions this year, and the Pac-12 is just so good, and I don't know if a team's going to be able to get out of there with 1 loss, but USC probably has the best shot of doing that. And if they can, again, they're going to be in the college football playoff. They're going to be really, really good on offense. One of the best offenses in the country, maybe the best offense in the country. And I think the defense will be improved for them as well. So this is going to be a really good USC team, and I think they are the team that has the best chance of making their college football playoff debut in 2023. Who do you think has the best shot? Let me know down in the comments below.